The question brought to the text is this: how do the 2026 DNA metagenomic results from the 1978 samples refine rather than undermine the case for an ancient Levantine origin of the cloth? Those results include Middle Eastern lineages with Druze-associated haplogroups, halophilic archaea consistent with saline environments, and silk proteins linked to post-1532 repairs. The text opens with a threshold declaration. Numbers chapter 32, verse 32. We will pass over armed before YHWH into the covenant inheritance land of Canaan, that the priestly inheritance of our inheritance on this side of Jordan may be ours. This is a vow of crossing, armed and covenantal, where inheritance is secured by active passage, not passive reception. The tribes of Reuben and Gad pledged to fight alongside their kin before claiming their own inheritance, confirming the inheritance by crossing over with the community. The second verse shows the same pattern. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 6. So the priest gave him consecrated bread because there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before YHWH, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. This is priestly provision in a moment of need. The priest gave consecrated bread to David, who was anointed and fleeing, sustaining the future king as the old bread was removed and new bread took its place. Now consider what the draw clusters around. Inheritance and promise anchor the text at 18 verses, with the lead verse setting the key, the priestly inheritance of our inheritance. This doubled language suggests the cloth's material witness is part of a layered claim, linking to the Levantine origins the DNA interrogates. Priesthood and consecration appear in 19 verses, including Leviticus chapter 7, verse 35. This is the consecrated portion of the anointing of Aaron and of the consecrated portion of his sons, out of the burnt offerings of YHWH made by fire in the day when he presented them to YHWH for the priesthood. The consecrated portion is marked by fire, presentation, and a specific day. The cloth itself bears marks of fire, of presentation, of a specific historical moment. The priestly frame does not demand pristine origin. It can bear the marks of offering. Timing and appointed season surface in 25 verses, with Mark chapter 14, verse 25 providing the key. Of a covenant truth I say to you, I will drink no more from the fruit of the vine, until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of Elohim. The covenant meal is deferred, but the present wine is still real. The DNA evidence from 1978 is present evidence. The silk proteins are real. The draw does not demand the cloth be untouched by time. It demands that the witness of time not erase the original inheritance. Now the mathematical confirmation. The deterministic verdict returns lean yes, probably affirmative, at 98.9% yes, 1.1% no, and 0.1% unresolved. The claim is strong anomaly with all gates passing. The Dominion triad fires at 1177.3% normalized reference intensity at 7.34 sigma, an extraordinary convergence across identity, inheritance, and priesthood. The PBI registers plus 1.747. The GDI gives Fisher chi-squared equals 120.67 with degrees of freedom 24 and P equals 7.36 times 10 to the minus 15. The CCI reaches 88% with 6 of 6 channels active. The data shows a statistically confirmed non-random pattern across multiple independent channels, surviving false discovery rate correction. But here is the critical caution. The ark has entered the camp, but the camp that knew the ark was present still fell that day. The statistical confirmation is reverence, not leverage. It does not claim divine authorship or miraculous origin from statistics alone. It does not generalize beyond this draw, nor suppress negative evidence. The silk proteins, halophilic archaea, and lineages are all real. Mathematics reframes, not erases. So what does the draw say to the evidence? The DNA evidence refines the case because it demonstrates the same pattern as the inheritance, crossing over armed, bearing marks of passage, and still claiming the inheritance on the other side. The halophilic archaea are not a problem. They witness to the environment where the cloth was kept. The Red Sea crossing in Psalms chapter 78, verse 13 speaks of waters standing upright as a piled-up heap, a saline environment, a passage that preserved. The cloth's saline signatures may be testimony to the journey. The silk proteins linked to post-1532 repairs are not a problem. They witness to the care taken across generations. The priest gives David the consecrated bread taken from before YHWH, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. The new bread replaces the old. The repair does not invalidate the original. The presence of later materials testifies to ongoing reverence. The Middle Eastern lineages are not a problem. They witness to the inheritance. The draw speaks of the land, the tribes, the cities. Joshua chapter 19, verse 39 gives the inheritance of Naphtali. Joshua chapter 21, verse 41 gives the 48 cities of the Levites. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 9 declares that YHWH is his covenant inheritance. The genetic signatures are markers of the land from which the cloth came. The thematic cluster of inheritance, priesthood, timing, and covenant faithfulness provides a framework for reading the DNA evidence as refinement. The evidence does not say the cloth is not ancient Levantine. It says the cloth has been preserved, carried, repaired, and venerated, leaving traces on the linen. Those traces are the dust of the journey. Now attention must be named. The draw is overwhelmingly affirmative, but cautionary voices are not absent. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 10 warns, "Because you do not inquire wisely concerning this." The temptation is to read the mathematical convergence as absolute certainty, but the inquiry remains open. The posterior certainty is moderate. The calibration is uninformed. The evidence is strong but not closed. The Father is speaking, but hearing requires humility. A plausible alternative reading is that the affirmation points more to the community's posture toward the cloth than to the cloth's origin itself, with inheritance pointing to the living community as the true inheritance. Yet the deterministic verdict does not permit inversion. Lean yes means lean yes. The cloth's witness is refined, not refuted, by the DNA evidence, not because statistics prove it, but because the drawn text consistently points to inheritance, priesthood, and covenant faithfulness as the framework for reading. The draw offers its answer between the porch and the altar. The lead verse's declaration, "We will pass over armed before YHWH," is not passive reception but active crossing. The DNA evidence is not an obstacle. It is the territory through which the inheritance is claimed. The halophilic archaea, the silk proteins, the haplogroups are witnesses to the journey. The conclusion, offered with firmness and gentleness, is this. The 2026 DNA metagenomic results refine the case for ancient Levantine origin by revealing the cloth's history of preservation, repair, and veneration. The evidence does not undermine, it deepens. The cloth has been carried through waters and fires, repaired in later centuries, and venerated across generations, all leaving traces in the linen and dust. The inheritance remains, and the priestly portion is still consecrated. The silk proteins from post-1532 repairs are real, and any honest reading must acknowledge the cloth is not pristine but a venerated object with a layered history. Yet the draw consistently frames this layered history as refinement, not refutation, of the ancient claim. The verses drawn in this Shield 17.14 session were Numbers chapter 32, verse 32. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 6. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 23. Mark chapter 14, verse 25. Luke chapter 23, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 4. This concludes today's interpretation under the Shield.